It was high noon at the private aviation center. Nathan Cole, a single father in a faded uniform, stood outside the main conference room. His 8-year-old son, Leo, sat quietly nearby, clutching his sketchbook. The heavy oak door of the boardroom swung open. Isabella Grant, CEO of Grant Aero Logistics, emerged, radiating cold authority. Her sharp gaze landed on Nathan. She spoke crisply. "Mr. Cole, we've decided to move forward without your contract." Nathan remained perfectly still, his face impassive. The door closed sharply, sealing the decision. Immediately, a blaring urgent alert siren echoed from the main runway complex. The crisis had begun. Nathan Cole, 40, was a man defined by two roles: single father and quiet observer. He was the first to recognize the subtle difference between a system reporting a failure and the machine experiencing one. For 10 years, he was an elite naval test pilot and certified flight systems engineer, specializing in pushing military jets to their structural limits. He understood complex, failure-prone systems better than anyone. His training involved intentionally inducing catastrophic flight control errors, from engine flameouts at Mach 1 to complete hydraulic failure, and recovering the aircraft purely by analog means and instinct. He had flown everything from FA-18 Hornets to experimental cargo haulers, machines that relied on mechanical linkages as much as digital control. This unique experience had forged in him an unwavering confidence in the physical reality of flight over any computer simulation. A catastrophic training accident, narrowly survived but resulting in severe emotional trauma and the subsequent dissolution of his marriage, forced him to leave the high-stress, high-stakes world of defense aviation. The accident had involved a cascade of sensor failures, proving that even the most advanced systems could lie. The ordeal taught him that life, like flying, demanded routine and stability. He traded the adrenaline of the afterburner for the quiet comfort of routine, prioritizing Leo's mental well-being over his own professional fulfillment. Now he held a series of short-term maintenance and ground support contracts. The job allowed him to bring Leo along during the long day shifts. This was a non-negotiable requirement due to the lack of childcare support. His job was to clean the hangars, but his true function was to observe, to be the sensory organ that the digital infrastructure lacked. He saw how the aluminum flexed, smelled overheated wire insulation, and heard the micro vibrations of metal fatigue. His life was structured around Leo's needs, valuing stability and presence over prestige and career advancement. His pilot's license, still current, was stored in a drawer at home, a relic of a life intentionally grounded. He often found himself wiping down the very machines he was qualified to command. Leo Cole, his son, was Nathan's shadow and his reason for being. Leo's sketchbook was a testament to his father's hidden world. He drew technical schematics of aircraft, mimicking the intensity he saw in Nathan's occasional subconscious observations. Leo didn't see a janitor. He saw a man who knew more than the loud, officious men in suits. He understood the silent language of respect that the mechanics, who occasionally asked Nathan for advice on stubborn landing gear, paid him. Isabella Grant was the quintessential modern CEO. Young, ruthless, and highly successful, she had built her empire on data analysis and digital efficiency. She only trusted credentials and quantifiable metrics. Her philosophy was simple. If a problem could not be solved by an algorithm, it wasn't a real problem. She saw human experience as unreliable noise in an otherwise perfect stream of data. She viewed Nathan purely as ancillary staff, a necessary cost in overalls. Her solutions only came from consultants with massive retainers. His presence was tolerated, never appreciated. The recent meeting was about optimizing the predictive maintenance algorithm for their flagship private jet fleet. The consulting firm, operating entirely remotely, had promised a 15% reduction in ground time. Nathan, during his contract, had submitted several detailed analog reports contradicting the algorithm's findings. His reports specified subtle points of stress, the wing spar mounts, the main landing gear actuators, and certain rudder linkage pivot points that, while showing clean data, were accumulating minute micro-corrosion that the algorithm, focused on sensor averages, completely missed. He suggested manual inspection was vital for certain thermal load points. The high-paid consulting firm dismissed his reports as anecdotal speculation and a reliance on obsolete, non-quantifiable intuition. The board, following Isabella's lead, chose the cheaper, purely digital, predictive solution. This meant cutting Nathan's contract immediately to save costs on non-essential manual labor. Nathan did not argue or defend his technical opinion. He understood the corporate decision-making process was flawed and driven by short-term cost savings. He simply gathered his small toolkit, the one containing specialized wrenches only an engineer would possess. As they walked away from the sterile glass of the boardroom, Leo tugged his father's sleeve. He asked softly, "Did we lose, Dad?" Nathan placed a hand on Leo's shoulder. He looked toward the runway where the alarm was sounding incessantly. "Not yet, buddy. The real test just started." The alarm indicated a major system anomaly on the Sky Sentinel, Isabella's personal jet. It was scheduled to fly a critical, high-value shipment to Asia. The machine was actively fighting itself in the hangar. The Air Operations Center instantly transformed into a scene of organized panic. Technicians and high-level engineers clustered frantically around monitoring screens. The screens showed the Sky Sentinel's flight data in alarming red and amber flashes. The jet itself sat on the apron, engines off, a ticking time bomb of electronic confusion. The problem centered on the Central Stability Augmentation System, SAS. The jet's onboard computer was showing inconsistent readings for pitch and yaw stabilization, making a safe takeoff impossible. The primary display flickered, displaying an urgent, flashing amber warning. SAS fault. Attitude disagree. This disagreement wasn't constant. It appeared only when the system attempted to self-check a specific, high-torque movement, the exact symptom Nathan had predicted based on physical observation. Two senior teams, the software architects, led by a young, arrogant man named Dr. Miles, and the avionics specialists, led by Alan, the chief engineer, immediately engaged in a heated debate. Dr. Miles insisted it was a data cascade error requiring a full system wipe and reload. The specialists argued it was a sensor drift that needed immediate calibration via the digital management unit. Both groups were highly skilled but completely ignored the underlying physical reality. They were trapped in a loop of digital diagnostic, running software tools designed to find software problems. They had failed to consider the analog fault hiding behind the pristine data shield. Isabella, receiving constant updates, began to lose her professional facade. She was due in Singapore for a merger signing ceremony in 8 hours. The failure to launch meant a $500 million penalty clause would be triggered, threatening to collapse the deal. She shouted into her satellite phone, demanding immediate solutions. The delays were now threatening a massive contractual penalty. She saw the problem as a failure of her digital system and a weakness in her staff. Nathan stood quietly by the window, now officially sidelined, watching the chaos unfold. The engineer in him couldn't ignore the data. He listened to the radio traffic, and more critically, the faint, high-pitched whine he could hear from the engine bay when the auxiliary pump briefly engaged. The smell of ozone, a byproduct of stressed electrical components, was also unmistakable. The intermittent nature of the fault, combined with that specific high-frequency whine he could hear from the tail section, suggested something physical. He realized the digital disagreement was a symptom of a subtle airframe stress. This stress was affecting the mechanical linkage to the primary control surfaces. This specific stress, caused by an unlogged imbalance or internal corrosion in a key pivot point, was only visible in the raw, unfiltered data stream, a stream that the engineers, focused on the processed summary, were ignoring. It required a trained eye, attuned to the jet's analog body language. Ignoring his recent dismissal, Nathan walked toward the main communications terminal. He spoke calmly over the noise, addressing Alan, the chief engineer. "Alan, it's not a data error. The SAS fault is intermittent because the error is mechanical, centered on the primary yaw linkage. Check the raw hydraulic manifold data, specifically the return line. The pressure inconsistency is causing a momentary imbalance. You need to physically check the main rudder actuator's pivot point for corrosion. That imbalance only shows up when the digital system tries to correct the yaw, thus creating the attitude disagree warning." Alan, sweating and stressed, didn't even look at him. He was too deep in the digital weeds. "Mr. Cole, your contract is terminated. This is a level 4 avionics fault. We're running proprietary diagnostics. Please stay away from the active monitoring area. We don't need speculative advice based on instinct." His rejection was absolute, public, and cruelly humiliating. Dr. Miles snickered, muttering something about primitive mechanics. Leo, sensing the renewed dismissal and the escalating tension, quickly put his drawing pad away. His face was pale, his young eyes witnessing the unfairness. Nathan knelt down. His hand was firm and steady on Leo's shoulder, a silent shield against the surrounding scorn. He spoke softly, in a voice only Leo could hear. "The machine knows the truth, Leo. Just wait." Just then, the automated system issued its final, most severe warning. A deep, loud klaxon blared. "System failure imminent. Grounding mandatory." The flashing amber lights turned a solid, terrifying red. The sound was deafening, silencing the engineers immediately. The time constraint was absolute. The jet needed to depart now to meet the international window. The engineers were frozen, unable to agree on a complex digital solution. They had hit the limit of their expertise. The pressure had reached a critical, irreversible peak, threatening Isabella's career, the merger, and potentially the jet itself if they kept forcing system checks. If you'd like to see how this crucial moment unfolds, you're welcome to subscribe and continue with us. The solid red alert finally shattered the engineer's professional denial. Alan, reluctantly pulling up the raw hydraulic data stream, the data stream Nathan had told him to check hours ago, saw the pressure anomalies exactly where Nathan had described. The system wasn't just disagreeing, it was physically fighting itself. He looked terrified. Twist 1. The crisis confirmed. He was right. It's structural. The rudder actuator is binding under load. The delta pressure spike is off the charts. If we attempt takeoff, the flight controls will seize at rotation speed. Guaranteed. The realization that they had dismissed the only correct diagnosis and risked a disaster was immediate and devastating. The massive cost of a crash, both in lives and capital, weighed heavily on the team. Dr. Miles went silent, his face draining of color. Isabella's assistant frantically reported back, reciting a litany of institutional failures. "All backup jets are grounded by freak fog in the secondary hub. A 4-hour meteorological hold. Our dedicated corporate test pilot is on mandatory FAA flight rest. We have no one cleared to fly a compromised system." The institutional safety net had failed against an analog reality. Outside the hangar, news helicopters began to circle lower, attracted by the unprecedented, prolonged grounding and the repeated, now infamous klaxon signals. The situation was going public, jeopardizing the merger entirely and threatening to crater the stock price. Isabella, her face etched with profound strain, watched her multi-million-dollar venture disintegrate. She was paralyzed, facing institutional failure and public humiliation, the kind that ends careers. Her assistant, seeing the CEO's breakdown, whispered 2 powerful words that cut through the noise. "He warned us." Isabella's eyes snapped to Nathan, who stood calm and still, observing the machine's distress. The arrogance was gone. Raw desperation replaced it. She walked up to him, her voice low and broken, stripped of its corporate steel. "We need you, Mr. Cole. I'm asking you, not ordering you. The cost of this delay is $500 million. What do you need?" Nathan ignored the reference to his firing. His mind was already back in the machine, focused on the single, narrow window of opportunity. He was now the only functioning professional in the room. He spoke with the clear, measured authority of a pilot entering a high-risk environment. "What's the current data stream? Get me the unfiltered sensor output on the primary yaw mechanism, not the averaged output." Leo watched his father intently from the glass office. His previous fear was replaced by a surge of nervous excitement and pride. His dad wasn't just sweeping anymore. He was commanding, and everyone, including the CEO, is listening. Nathan, now inside the operations center, analyzed the flood of raw data instantly, his eyes quickly finding the needle in the digital haystack. The corrosion is minor, but is critically located on the secondary pivot's grease bushing. which the digital lubricant monitor missed. We can't dismantle the system here and risk contaminating the lines. We must bypass the electronic limiter and manually apply a pulse of pressure to temporarily free the bearing. It requires a high-risk taxi, sustained engine thrust, and a full system cycle in motion to safely flush the contaminant. Twist 2. The final choice. He looked directly at Isabella, answering her silent question about his qualifications. I spent 15 years putting jets like this through simulated failure scenarios. I know exactly how this mechanism fails because I designed the safety procedures around its failure mode. I hold the necessary type rating, a current ATP license, and a flight engineer certification. I am the only pilot in this center who knows how to manually fly this jet's hydraulic system while it's failing, keeping it within its physical safety envelope. Isabella didn't hesitate this time. The man she had dismissed was her last, only option. Then do it, Pilot Cole. The center is yours. Alan, you will assist Mr. Cole on the ground. Follow his every command. This is now a flight test operation. Get him a headset and a clean uniform. Now. Nathan waved off the offer of a new uniform. No time. Headset only. Alan, assign one crew to the tail access panel with a torque wrench. I need full communication with them. I'm going in. Nathan swiftly put on a spare headset. His movements were fluid, precise, and professional. The janitor had vanished. Only the decorated test pilot remained. He gave Leo a reassuring glance before heading to the plane. He climbed into the Sky Sentinel's cockpit. The familiar smell of aviation fuel and ionized air instantly settled his nerves. He ignored the digital screen's screaming error messages and focused on the older, analog gauges, the ones the computer used as a backup. He ran the complex manual pre-flight check in under 2 minutes, his hands flying across the controls with muscle memory the engineers could only dream of possessing. He established communication. This is Pilot Cole aboard Sky Sentinel. Ground crew, confirmed tail access team is in position. We will commence a high-speed taxi and systems flush. Alan, stand by with the override sequence. We are flying a manual failure recovery. Time is critical. Let's go. Alan, humbled and terrified, responded instantly, his voice cracking. Standing by, Pilot Cole. Your command. Nathan immediately established a new, disciplined communication protocol. His voice was calm, cutting through the static of panic like a surgeon's scalpel. He instructed the ground crew to manually monitor the flow meters, bypassing the faulty digital display, relying on human eyes and older secondary instruments. He was flying the machine, not the screens. Nathan pushed the throttles forward. The jet, previously shaking with inconsistent power, now moved smoothly. He guided it onto the runway, maintaining a precise medium speed that minimized airframe load while maximizing hydraulic pressure. The high-speed taxi was a precise dance between maintaining control and forcing the system to work. He spoke over the headset, directing the ground crew with laser precision. Tail team, confirm primary pivot visible. Alan, prepare the override. We need exactly 80 psi in the main line. No more. Stand by for the pulse. The jet accelerated down the long, empty runway, passing the point where the engineers had initially feared failure. Isabella watched, holding her breath, the high-stakes financial disaster forgotten. All that mattered was the sheer, terrifying risk Nathan was taking. Alan, ready for the pressure pulse. Mark. Nathan's command was sharp. He deliberately, momentarily overloaded the hydraulic line, intentionally stressing the system to the very edge of its structural limit. This action was designed to temporarily free the corroded bushing, forcing the obstruction to move. A faint, loud clunk, a sound like metal snapping back into place, was heard over the radio. Then, smooth silence. The whine was gone. Pitch and yaw synchronization nominal, Captain Cole. The fault is cleared. System integrity restored. Alan shouted, relief flooding his voice, his previous dismissal entirely forgotten. The amber warning lights blinked off across the main display panel, one by one. The terrifying red klaxon was silent. Isabella stood at the edge of the tarmac, now merely an observer. She did not interfere, offer advice, or even speak. She watched the disciplined, almost surgical operation Nathan conducted, recognizing the profound difference between corporate authority and actual mastery. She had tried to command the crisis with money. Nathan had commanded it with knowledge. Leo sat pressed against the glass, no longer drawing but watching the immense jet slowing down. He saw his father, effortlessly controlling the massive aircraft, bringing it back to life. He saw the genuine, unquestioning respect in the ground crew's faces. Nathan completed a final, high-speed run and systems check, ensuring that the critical V1 speed was safely achievable. He brought the Sky Sentinel to a flawless, gentle stop back at the apron. He had not only fixed the system, he had proven its stability under the most challenging manual override conditions. When Nathan finally shut down the engines and descended the air stairs, the entire hangar was silent. The engineers avoided eye contact, ashamed of their earlier dismissal. Their arrogance had been replaced by genuine, professional awe. Dr. Miles looked particularly defeated, his digital expertise eclipsed by analog truth. Nathan's competence was undeniable. He had not needed a title or $1 million contract to validate his value. His quiet skill had literally saved the day, and more importantly, the merger. The power balance had irrevocably shifted. The Sky Sentinel, now fully functional and stable, was being prepped for immediate departure. Isabella intercepted Nathan near the maintenance bay. She spoke softly, her voice heavy with sincere apology. "Nathan, I was arrogant. I misjudged you entirely. My belief in data over human experience was catastrophically flawed, and it almost cost us everything. You saved us from absolute ruin. I am truly sorry for my words and my decision this morning." Her apology was public, a painful admission of corporate hubris. "I need you, Nathan. I am creating the new position of Director of Physical Systems Integrity. You will report directly to me and have absolute veto over any flight clearance based on physical diagnostics. Name your price and your terms. That role includes stock options, a full retirement package, and an executive salary that recognizes your unique value." Nathan gently shook his head, looking down at his worn maintenance boots. "I refuse the executive title, Ms. Grant. A director title would put me back in the boardroom, focusing on budgets, meetings, and reports instead of machines. My value is my hands-on knowledge and my ability to listen to the system. I will not be isolated from the physical reality of the aircraft." He laid out his precise requirements, prioritizing his family above all else. "I accept a role as advisory flight consultant, reporting to Alan, the chief engineer, not to you directly. This ensures I stay close to the aircraft. The pay must reflect the executive responsibility you offered, and I require a dedicated budget for specialized analog tools. But my schedule must be completely flexible. Leo is my priority. If he has a school event or if he is sick, I leave. My work is non-consecutive, and my family comes first. No debate, no penalty." Isabella accepted instantly. A genuine, almost relieved smile touched her lips. "Done. Your terms are the new standard for the advisory role. Family comes first. I will ensure every engineer and every manager understands that principle." She had learned that true loyalty is earned, not bought, and that human integrity was the only metric that truly mattered. Leo watched the exchange, his eyes wide. He saw the powerful CEO defer to his father, the man in overalls. He understood that his dad had won the biggest battle without raising his voice or seeking a grand title. Isabella immediately issued a directive mandating a new Cole protocol for all flight clearances, requiring manual inspection of Nathan's critical load points before any automated diagnostic was run. The organizational culture began its slow, necessary shift toward valuing real expertise, experience, and integrity over corporate hierarchy and digital convenience. Alan, now humbled, would be Nathan's biggest advocate. Nathan and Leo walked out of the hangar as the Sky Sentinel taxied for takeoff, engines purring perfectly. The roar of the jet was now a sound of success, not panic. Nathan gently took Leo's sketchbook. "Sometimes being dismissed is how you get to prove you're the only person who can solve the impossible problem," Nathan said, his voice low but firm. "Your worth isn't in the seat you sit in, but the knowledge you carry and the truth you speak." Leo looked up, his eyes shining. But Dad, you could be a director. You could have a big office like hers, he whispered, pointing back at Isabella's remote office. Nathan chuckled, ruffling his son's hair. The truth is, buddy, that office is where you lose touch with the machine. If I'm in there, I can't hear the micro vibrations, I can't smell the ozone, and I can't watch you draw the truth. My job is here, where the bolts are real and the air smells like jet fuel. That's where I can protect the flight. And now, thanks to your old man, my contract says my priority is picking you up from school, not signing papers. Leo smiled. Leo, they reached their beat-up Ford pickup. As Nathan opened the passenger door for Leo, he noticed a small, heavy box resting on the seat, a gift from Isabella's assistant. Inside, resting on velvet, was a pristine, customized torque wrench kit engraved with the words, "Integrity over data." The massive business jet climbed safely into the blue sky, carrying Isabella to her successful merger. She watched it go, then watched Nathan and Leo walk away into the setting sun, the embodiment of quiet power and dignity. The cost of her mistake was high, but the lesson learned was invaluable. 6 months later, the massive hangar complex of Grant Aerologistics was quieter, more disciplined. The new culture, born from a $500 million near catastrophe, was palpable. Alan, now the chief engineer, with a renewed focus on analog reliability, supervised a routine pre-flight for a new cargo jet. He carried a tablet, but his primary tool was a sensitive pressure gauge. Section C4, confirmed Cole protocol is executed. We need manual pressure check on the yaw linkage pivot before running the digital diagnostic, Alan directed calmly. Dr. Miles, still the software architect, but now wearing a pair of practical safety glasses and holding a specialized corrosion probe, grumbled slightly but complied. He had learned that software could only validate what the physical world presented. Confirmed, Chief. Pivot is clean. Moving to thermal coupling scan. Nathan, wearing a clean dark blue flight suit that replaced his old uniform, was nearby but not in the way. He was teaching a group of junior engineers how to read the engine housing vibrations by touch, not just by sensor data. Isabella Grant walked past, no longer rushing or shouting. She paused to observe Nathan. She successfully completed the merger, and the company's trust rating skyrocketed, ironically, after she started listening to the man she had fired. She was talking to a new, young female engineer. Remember, Isabella said to the protege, her voice calm and pedagogical. Nathan didn't just fix the machine, he fixed the system. We use data to confirm, but we use human knowledge to prevent. If Nathan Cole ever tells you to ground a jet because it doesn't feel right, you ground it. No debate. That is the essence of the Cole protocol. She gave a respectful nod toward Nathan, who was currently laughing with Leo, who was visiting during a school holiday. Leo was sitting on a workbench, proudly etching a detailed schematic onto the side of the new specialized torque wrench, the one Nathan was using. The drawing was titled "The Truth in the Bushing." The cost of Isabella's arrogance had become the foundation of her legacy, a corporate culture where the quiet expertise of a single dad was valued more than any digital algorithm. If you believe stories like this deserve to be told, leave a comment and subscribe. Respect is earned when pressure is real.